Otherwise, everyone's reading my laptop.
Yeah. Well, thankfully.
Is it a Mac? Okay, yeah, let's just click on that. See what happens. If not, I have my computer's down there. But then how do we make it? Oh, it's over here. Is that the show?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, but I get to manipulate it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do a test. Do you have any videos on there? Okay. Oh, there you go. So it looks there.
Oh, and then there's a preview. How nice is that?
Yeah. Like close this out? Like close this.
Yeah, I just usually use these guys.
Okay, no. Don't allow. Stop. Wait, I want to turn that off. Oops. Can you turn off they had this thing about the subtitles came on and I was like, okay. I think I do. I think maybe we can. Okay.
Hi, Al.
Hi.
I'm Molly. I'm the gallery
I
director.
see you now.
Nice to meet you.
I stood right in front of that light.
Here,
Sorry about this cord right here. It is going to hang over how you would get out this way. Just
What is that card for?
This microphone right here.
Oh, I'll be using the microphone?
Yes, but it's going to pick up. If you stand right here, it's going to pick up everything you're going to say.
Okay, I tend to wander, so.
Okay.
Is this an amplifier or simply a recording microphone?
It's to record, so we're streaming
perfect.
to YouTube, and it's going to pick
Then I'll
up.
try and pay attention to not wander too far.
Okay,
All
sounds
right.
good. I mean, if you do wonder, that's okay.
Well,
It
my
will
legs just go, and so I'll try and restrain
Yeah,
them.
no worries.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Also,
And shall I
Thank
leave
you.
this on for
I
that?
was going to say, if you're comfortable, you can take it off.
Well, most everyone's vaccinated, and they've
Yeah.
all been checked.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then Russell's going to introduce me, and then I'm going to introduce you.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, I'll go wait till then.
Forget what you're doing.
Hey folks. Hey. Hi. What? Today day 4. Day 4. Anyway, thanks everybody for getting through day 4 and getting some sunshine. It's lovely meeting people in the tent. A little bit of conversation earlier. Really happy to have Bill Francis and Julie here tonight to talk to us and have a conversation. I'm going to introduce Julie in just a second, and she'll introduce Frank to us. But it's nice to see you. It's nice to play tag team. I haven't actually done an introduction for a while. I need to be back there. Anyway, Julie brought Elle to us, and Julie has been part of our program, a significant part of our program for the last number of years. We said in the slide some of it, 7 of them?
Maybe, yeah.
Anyway, a number of years, and a significant part of the program, playing many roles, from mentoring to running seminars to doing focus video practices. Right now, moving our thesis students through their exhibition. Julie's just done a ton of different things and has filled out the community in ways that is just absolutely lovely. So thank you. I hope folks can see her show in San Francisco. And I'm thrilled just on the sort of that way that you like the whole things, that the program likes the whole things, to see that from working with us out at Station, Julie went and took the firefighting training courses and has integrated that into her practice. And I don't know, that makes me so kind of just bouncy. It's not exactly happy. So anyway, I will let Julie introduce, and thank you for all of your work here.
Thank you, Russell, and thank you, Anza, as well, and Molly, and Kristen, and everyone who helped support bringing El Frank here. Thank you. I'm going to take this off for a sec, and I'm just going to read from this little section of the intro to the interview that I did with El Frank, because it will more beautifully represent who this special artist is. For Elle Frank, who has dedicated her life to the revitalization and visibility of indigenous art practices and languages originating from the Los Angeles basin, art is a mirror that reflects a living culture through which a community can recognize itself. Her unwavering commitment to this ethos has led her to a practice that renews the traditional art practices of the Tongva: stone carving, canoe construction, and song. In the early 1990s, resisting the settler colonial narrative that indigenous languages and cultures are relics of the past, Elle Frank co-founded Advocates for Indigenous California Language Survival, a nonprofit organization dedicated to spreading the knowledge of Native California languages and fostering new speakers. I first encountered Elle Frank's work through her photographic project, First Families: Photographic History of California Indians, for which she traveled across the state to collect personal stories and photographs from California indigenous communities. She has worked in the back rooms of institutional archives like the First Museum of Anthropology at the University of California, Berkeley, and has spent decades cultivating close relationships with the few remaining artwork that were made by her ancestors. What museums and anthropologists consider an artifact of an erased culture, Elle Frank perceives as a sentient object that tells the story of her people and carries the possibilities for their future. As she explains it, visiting the storage rooms of museum collections is like reconvening with old family members. I'm so honored to introduce Elle Frank tonight. Thank you, Elle.
Thank you, Julie. I thought you were telling them I met in bathrooms of museums. I didn't hear the word back rooms. I thought I'd never met anyone in a bathroom. Ajachmem El Frank none Tongva Kukamovet Rarámuri pi Ajachmem. I'm from the village of I'm not from that village. I'm from the village that's now called Rancho Cucamonga, and then my family moved over to the coast. I think it was at the insistence of other people, but we did move closer to the coast from my village. So I just sang you this song here that I made for the LA River, and then Netflix called me up and said, "Hey, be a part of our project. It's about the LA River." So I thought, well, that was good timing. So if you have Netflix, it's on there. It's called. It's a very sweet program. The animation is excellent. Her name is Elizabeth Ito, the animator. Apparently, she's won awards, and rightly so. But she did 6 or so vignettes on LA, and Tovangar, that's the episode, it's about us natives in the city. And there's magic to it, and there's some bling. I get to wear all the bling. But it's a really sweet program, but it's a really nice artistic piece. It's a really nice blend of different media.
City of Ghosts.
City of Ghosts. And ours is the only one that doesn't have ghosts because we natives don't like saying, yeah, ghosts, you know. We'll talk about spirits and ancestors, and it's hard to explain the difference, but there is. Or you can just take our word for it. When you see City of Ghosts, you'll hear there's a little boy in there. His name's Jasper, which is a funny name to give an Indian. When the producer said to me, oh, they said he's a Tongva boy. I said, what's his name? And they go, Jasper. And I looked at them and I said, Jasper Sanchez? And they had no clue what I was saying. But what I'm saying is most of us California natives have Hispanic last names, and not a one of us is named Jasper. So, but this is Jasper in the program, but his name is Honor, and he's being cultivated. He's Chumash and Tongva. That's his mom. She's a rapper, Jessie Calderon. You can find her on the YouTube. But he's being groomed to be a leader of his peoples. You know, I had to tell the producers sometimes he does have fun, but mostly if there's ceremony, he's there to help the older men to do, older men things, and he's just a boy. He's just wonderful. But that's the little voice you hear. So, I'm a very serious artist. You know, it takes a lot for me to find something funny. I like this mural because it's much larger than what you can see here, and it focuses not on usually where my hand is, but it's this beautiful. The desert is open and just beautiful. It's a sunrise. This is down near Indio, California, and the people are all full and round-bellied, and they're happy, and they have decoration, and they have tattoos, and they have jewelry. You know, they're just like they're jamming, right? It's all good. And if you go over to the plaque that reads about them, it says something about these people had to wake up again to another harsh reality, you know, and they made it because who can fathom living in a desert, you know? And so it was did the writer not look at this painting? You know, and it's a beautiful mural. I hope it's still there, and I hope that guy recovered. This on the right, what side is that on? This on the left is a map that I take around to California Native events. And I tell people, write down what you're really called, because we've all heard stories of how natives are named. Well, most of us, I guess. Like way up at the top on the left, kind of sticking out darker, it says Caneste, and it's got a little thing that says Wailaki. And the reason that it has two names, they have two names, is some visitors came, probably my ancestors, no, they didn't get that far. Somebody else's ancestors went up to either the Yuki or the Numlaki or the Wintun, and they said, hey, who are those guys over there? And they said, well, they are the Wailaki. Well, that means enemies. They just said, those are the guys we don't like. So now they're starting to call themselves what they really call themselves, which is Caneste. So I put this map out as, just a weird little art project. Some old man down at the bottom came and finally, first he walked by my table and he went, oh, okay. And then and he came wandering back by and he did it again. All right. And he came by a third time and he looked at it closer. And then he took a pencil and I told him, mark it. And he had a little mark. Then he left. He came back and he made the mark bigger. And by the time he quit coming back, he owned all of San Diego. And he's Kitsan, which is over at the desert. But his people own all of San Diego, some of the Cahuillas people, some of our, so he really got into it. But anyway, up there, I just thought I'd show you some California Indians because I don't know if you've seen them. Here they are. Yeah. When I got to this event, it was a language event on the bottom right. They said to me, because I always have a camera, and this is so annoying, you can take our group shot. You want me to take a wedding shot too? I like that just as much. So they were all standing like this, and I thought, great, they're all starving, they're tired, and it was very boring. So I said, y'all put your hands up, and so they did. And it made it far more. It looked like they had fun. This is what I called myself for a long time. And mostly it's a longer story. I have too many slides, so I won't tell you the whole story, or we'll be here for days. named Decolonizationist because I was at a party with drunks and they kept asking me questions, and finally this is the one word that drove them off. And I didn't even know what it meant, but it drove them off, so that was good. This is some language work stuff that I did. I used art. I was down in the most unexplored part of Australia, like that didn't scare me, and doing language work. Only I don't think I used the colors that they recognize. It's not that they can't see them, they just don't have a name for them. Not like they're all blind or something. So now this is what I go by. I am like our old governor of California, the re-indiginator. Yeah. You know, because I can't move, decolonization, what is that? That's like a land acknowledgement, you know? But a re-indiginator is like an active thing, in my opinion. This is all about me, this first part, okay? And then we'll go on. This is me. I'm a jogger of memories. See, that's me running through. Somebody thought that was Michael Jackson down at the bottom, but no, that's me. Yeah, you know Michael Jackson. Woo, boy. Yeah. That's not. How's it going so far? Great. All right. Okay. Well, I'm just kind of nervous, excited because this is the first time that I've ever shown slides and been able to think only about art and have culture be, you know, there, because it's going to obviously be here, because all the time it's culture that I'm using art to explain. And that's really quite different, you know, as an artist. Well, shoot, you know, I should feel comfortable. Maybe I'll get there. So anyway, there's Coyote, you know, putting on their little nerdly museum t-shirt. That's what it says, Indian Museum. Okay. I obviously just took this right off the internet. I just like to show people my village. And this is where I tell people about our warm sandy beaches. That is a nuclear power plant behind my head there. Yeah. And I talk to people. You can see there's at the end of the beach there's somebody standing, but then there's a strip of concrete that goes across the screen. Well, that's a little walkway to get to a really nice beach on the other side. So I always like to walk there, but if you walk there, I'm going to have to leave this microphone if I do it right. Maybe I'll just stay here and knock the mic down. As you start walking, it's usually a large man. I think that's how they put the ad in the paper, large men. And so it's a really large man wearing all black and carrying a machine gun and walking behind you with a scowl. I think that's meant for a scowl. And they walk about 10 feet behind you. It's like, oh, this is relaxing. So this is where I come from. Sometimes it's not easy being Indian. Look, a photograph. Such a complex photograph. People go, how did you take that? And I do this. I go, like this. I bent over and I clicked the shutter release. This is one of our sacred plants. The chumash, and I think we must have had something similar, but the chumash believe that when you die, two ravens come to take your eyeballs out and replace them with poppies so that you have magic poppy vision to get to the land of the dead. And there are many trials and tribulations along the way. Some people don't make it. But if you do make it, when you get there, the ravens come again and replace those eyes with abalone eyes. This is datura, don't eat it. Yeah. So it's like this photo of these guys. The guy in the end here, this end, he just reminds me of a mad PE teacher. But anyway, this is from the Berkeley Digital Library, and it's the last of the original priests that came and enslaved my peeps. And so they were sitting in a mission, but I threw those flames in, and I call it Friars of Hell. So it's because of these guys, and Sebastian Manriquez came with Portola, so I can't be totally innocent. I just realized, I guess somebody asked me. It's not like I was enlightened, but they asked, how does it feel being both the oppressor and the oppressed? Feels like this. So because of those guys and my ancestors, this is a painting I did. The title is Waiting for the Grant. Because I can't get the Cultural Revival Act going unless I got a little moolah, you know. Kids like it, they think it's a vampire. really love all that acid and all that. This I made with all that pine dust, you know, I ground it. I was wearing a respirator and stuff, but still I tried to breathe and go, my lungs, you know, and then they'd come back out and fill up again. But this is called Franciscan Showers. Once in an art show, someone looked at this and went, isn't that nice? They gave the Indians their own showers. Yeah, that was real nice. Yeah, I still remember it. I did not take this, but I did muck with it. That's us, I don't know why it's in here, but I'll talk about it anyway. That's us in D.C. trying to fight for native languages. And they go, learn English. So I created a conference called Breath of Life, and they can never succeed in making art for it, and they keep using mine, actually without paying me. And so this is stuff that this is line drawings that I do. These are, you know, we're in laboratories and dungeons of museums with all these manuscripts and writings and clips of paper, and you have to go through all the security. It's really quite something. But just to turn these, you know, esoteric, diacritic, whatever things into our language again, you know, into life. At one point, I'm going to start going real fast. I'm just warning you now. This was a really difficult painting to paint because it's just the moment that creation happens for us here on planet Earth. The red is the male, the brother, the black is the female, and the white is the Milky Way, Peewish. The problem with this, it seems like really simple to say those things, but it took about 1,000,000 years to be able to find out what that was. I had to attend a conference with astrophysicists to understand the nature of space in order to understand our own cosmologies, because all of us are wiped out. We used to be the largest tribe in the southern area, Pimu and Minark, that's Catalina and San Nicolas, and the other guy over there, I always forget his name. And then we're reduced down to 1,500 at the very most. And so most of our knowledge holders are gone. Fortunately, before I was born, they talked to me, and after I was born, it made me an odd child, but my ancestors talked to me. You know, I'd lay on the field. Turns out there's 600 bodies there, 400 were women, and they all, not all of them, that would have been a choir. But they talked to me or about me, or sometimes they ignored me, but they recognized I was there. And I'd lay on the ground and listen to them, and I could see people. So naturally, my you know, IRL family, they go, well, let's just leave her home. So, you know, let's put her in the attic. Yeah. So finally, I was able, being with astrophysicists, I was actually able then to really just esoteric cosmology, and you know how cosmologies are, they contradict each other every 2 seconds. Like in most of our stories, Coyote dies, but then he gets up and does something else. You know, so, but this is the Milky Way. The attributes of the actual Milky Way is what created our planet to us. And our most sacred island, the center of our universe, is called Minar or San Nicolas, which the Navy bombed the hell out of. Because, you know, it's important. And this is where the first things that are born are the stones and the earth, the dirt and the ground, and then the magic plants, and then the moon, and then the mystery theater stuff at the bottom. Those are the human beings. This is how the Pleiades got to be the Pleiades. They ate Datura for 6 days, which imbued magic into the rope that they made. And they did this because Coyote had murdered all their husbands because he wanted to be with all of them. And it's a much longer story, but they fly up into the sky, and he follows along because one of the women throws him the rope. It's a plan. And when they get way up in the sky, they cut the rope, and he falls back and becomes the Star Aldebaran. And the way that I find out these things, because we don't have the elders for it, you know, I go, like I spent time in Paris looking at things and being chased by neo-Nazis. Actually, England, they chased the skinheads. What's the difference in them and neo-Nazis? So everywhere I've gone, it's, you know, I've been chased through the streets for being the other, and the funders don't want to fund you. They go, I'm not going to fund someone going on vacation. So on vacation, I can't eat the food. You know, the people chase me in the streets, and there are too many stairs. But anyway, but that's, yeah. This I shot up in the Musée de l'Homme it's a bowl up on the top left, and it's inlaid with asphaltum, olivella shells on the bottom, and then limpets on the top. And I'm not sure the use of this bowl because they didn't ever have the sides tested. You see a little diagram of on how Pimu on Catalina, there's a soapstone shelf where that's how we would make soapstones, using the living wall as a vise. And that's the top bowl is the first one in 200 years I made that. It's small, it's only about this big. It was lovely. It's the first and only art piece that I've ever dreamt. Yeah, it actually is quite lovely. And since then, I've made like 25 or 30 bowls and a million effigies. It's lovely to work soapstone. There it is. Small cooking pot. Because you can leave it in the fire and your food never burnt. That's how we got language. The whales got together with everybody and said language, and it happened. I didn't realize that I had become a pyrotechnician. I thought I was just wood burning. There's this Danae woman. She's a pyrotechnic, whatever. Looked it up. Wood burning. It's a $10 kit from the store that sells equipment made by Chinese slaves. So that's the end of Pimu here of Catalina and the mainland, and that end there was where the last known our religious Wankish was. And a horrible story happened there, but another time. This is us going to Washington, don't know why it's in here. I created that Breath of Life program, but then the academics took it and said they created it, so it's like, oh, that's something. But then they hired me to go work at it, Shadow of the Whale. It's a funny thing for artists to be dealing with all these academics like this in linguistics and other sciences, because we're not very much alike. Most artists, doesn't matter what art you make, jiving with scientists is really it's weird. I mean, it's good to know what they're thinking and doing, but when they disagree with you, they can rub out a whole civilization with just a book. I mean, that they write and say, oh, these people are gone. So anyway, I was working with linguists, and I didn't realize that the linguists had their own agenda. Of course they do. They're linguists. They're into esoteric orthographies, and then they're always fighting with the Indians. And I stopped this one Indian from throwing a linguist over the railing in the Museum of the American Indian. I thought, well, something has to be done. So I created a thing called Shadow of the Whale, where we got together and discussed each other's needs, and expressed them to each other. And lo and behold, we only had one incident, and it was minor. It's a funny thing for artists to be doing. This is about a piece of art that should have been first, but someone asked me to do a Day of the Dead thing, which I'd never done. I said, okay, but it was around Father Sarah becoming a saint. He came in and imprisoned my people, and they all died, and now I have to do all this hard work. I just want to be a hippie smoking pot making art. So about 35 people from community, from little kids to old people, they came and they said, old people, I'm old, so, my friends, came and we made a mission. It was 5 feet tall, 8 feet wide, and we had been to a meeting where all the Christian Indians, Catholic Christian Indians, were on this side of the room, all the artists were on this side of the room, Native artists, mostly writers and painters, all kinds of things. And these guys were going, oh, we're going to have holy days, and we're going, burn the mission, which was really funny because it made them start crying, which, just spurred us on. We were merciless. Burn the mission. We were relentless till they were in tears. We're not really going to burn the mission, They go, you can't burn the mission. Our ancestors are in the mud, which is true. A lot of times we were in that part of the buildings. And that's all the DNA, that's all that's left. And we yelled at them, no, you're the DNA that's left. Burn the mission. So we made a mission, and it was pretty cool, except paper mache, anyone who's worked with it. We had to make all these babies. They're about this size, like newborn. My friend tried to paint teeth on them. It's like, he has 3 kids. Dude, this isn't... Why doesn't it have teeth? It's a baby. Anyway, he's a very good artist. He just didn't understand babies, I guess. Anyway, so we had to blacken the teeth out on them. But while they were wet, you'd go to pick it up and they'd go, and your stomach would roll because, oh my God, little dead babies, paper mache babies. Anyway, it turned into a bitchin' thing. We had, and you'll see in this other photo here, we had this guy, he's this Catholic, and he's going, my great-grandfather put the first stone in the church. And And I said, well, and so he's well, my leather family said, can we make the whips and chains? I said, okay. So so they chained him to the mission, which is all right. But he's chained to the mission. He's got one of those fan jackets that says Dapopalooza, a tour of, I don't know what year it was, and he's shoving a baby in that corner. But on the other side is well, in the photo you'll see her legs because we couldn't start the fire before the cops came, so we lit her and she lit up the rest. You'll understand. Anyway, but she's on the other side taking a baby out. You know, the cartoon bombs, it says bomb, and she's putting that in. And then Sarah's flying over the top. It was bitching. There was this little glass babies. It was pretty cool. But I decided this, actually, because this guy thought of it. He goes, what are you going to do when it's done? I go, I don't know. He goes, why don't you burn it? Duh, I was in a meeting, burn the mission. It never occurred to me. So, all right, that was the plan. So I started making art, and I didn't want to let people know where, but releasing the ancestors. See, those are some of the babies, but they don't have teeth, so don't look for them. So this is in language, which is funny because my linguist is, he's the sweetest man, but he's the staunchest Catholic. He's as Catholic as my family was. You know, they wear like gold robes and shite and all that, and they come through the house and do other things and, throw people like me out. And but I asked him, I need to translate this, burn the mission down. And he goes, okay, oops. He goes, all right, and he puts it in there, burn the mission down. So he's very helpful in anything that I need native words for. Release the ancestors. Oh, there it is. That's Sarah going over the top. I wanted to toss him, but my friend really wanted to, so okay. You see, he's chained to the other side of the building. It was so satisfying. It was such a huge fire. Really a huge fire. It drew all kinds of racists right to us. This I did later because there was a fire at one of the missions, and you know how on Facebook they say, I'm safe or I'm this or I did, so I made that. I think that's a lovely photo. Yeah, don't eat it. Okay. I have to tell you. This is a series I did called Stop the Dance because our religion is so rubbed out and people, not everyone, a great many people need something, and so they try everything. Buddhist this week, next week, I'm having a hamburger. So this is a part of the Stop the Dance, and that's Coyote up under that mask. And most natives, us, our tribe also consider ourselves star people. And so this is juggling our belief system with, this other. And it doesn't really make them happy or they don't feel satisfied. I did a series about that. Because when people make me mad, I do a series about it, Like I slept with this boy once when I was very young, and he said he was going to make a dance about it. I guess that's not important. All right. Yeah. Our people are down in Southern Cal. We're one of like 4 or so tribes that do sand painting. So I took all the magic out of it by adding things that wouldn't be there. That's why I can show you this. But I can show you it anyway because nobody's ever seen it. So they don't know to be, offended or whatever. But different things. That blue bar across the middle is the Milky Way representation. And the snake should only have one bowl in front of it. That's the Tulachi bowl. We ate that plant I keep telling you not to touch. This is another series I did. This one's called Coyote Drops the Goblet. I have another one. It'll come up later. That's called Coyote Opts Out of the Choir. So, yeah. I was raised in a Catholic family. I got kicked out of catechism because I wore shorts, but the white girl wore shorts, and she didn't get kicked out. Oh, I learned a lesson. Don't go back to that place. It was the lesson, Not for you. And then I started talking about their zombie god, but I wasn't using those words. But basically, I thought somebody resurrecting because nobody explained it to me properly. They just said, look, and there's a guy going, oh, no, And so, yeah. So I was not invited back. Yeah. Here's some line art I made on the side. It says, tell me your dreams. Because, I don't know, people always come up to you. I have another drawing that, sure, I'd love to hear and interpret your dreams for you. And I asked an audience once, a very angry feminist, I said, they were like this the whole time. I said, how come you never asked the Swedish girls to interpret your dreams? They were so unhappy with that. They were really mad. Anyway, there's a lot of torture stuff there that several missions still keep in their basement, so I just drew them. You know. This is it. Coyote opts out of the choir. I had watched, it was a whole month of HBO, I'd watched Malcolm X and Gandhi, that whole month. And so Coyote X came out saying he must weave his own cloth. I think he repurposed one of those robes the coyotes are wearing. And he has a love potion under his left arm. It's got B, it's urine. That's how you break it down in English for the honey. And sweet sages. So you can get the love of your life. When I was down in Australia, the women there, they adopted me, and they also taught me a dance and sang me a song, This Is For You. And it was the Boomerang Song, and it went like this, And I said, what's it about? And they said, getting your man back. It's like, oh. This is a double drop aquatit and other stuff. I don't know the names for it. I just did it. Yeah. Oh, there's that mission again. This is a print. It's in a museum. So that's why it's like that slanted thing. There's a character that I draw. His name's Christopher Coyote. He's the comic. And he's, no, really, please, take my wife. Yeah. There we go. No thank you, Sarah Hood. It's an art piece I did. It's kind of bitching. It's a much longer story. I'm going to skip just to the part where I finally, this is the solution. But in Santa Monica, where I was born, there are these big cage things in this park called Tongva Park. And they overlook the ocean and Santa Monica Pier. And they're big metal things. They're just I don't know, I guess they represent baskets. They're nice. And a platform for you to look out. And I thought, wow, this is the view my ancestors had. And so I made these guys, and my friend climbed up those things, and the city turned their backs literally while he did that, because it was like 5 stories up now from the street. And we hung them up, and so people then, to look out, you looked out through their eyes. And I didn't put up anything, but I could hear people and say, this must be what their ancestors saw. So, and that's all I was looking for. And they really caught your eye because it's on a big boulevard. This is a canoe. One of my canoe family members is here. Hi, John. Is he asleep? No. That's him in the back. Yeah. There really have been no giant condors flying over our canoes. It's a painting I did and a photo of our canoe. Our canoe is plank canoe steam sewn and glued together. And nobody really knows how to do it. The Chumash have made several, and everyone makes it a bit differently. And I make it the most different, but then ours actually goes out into the ocean on journey. Here's a piece of art. Neophytes on the run, join the rancheros on their quest for adventure. See the dirty little Indians run through the jungle trying to dodge your bullets. Meet at the mission chapel at dawn, dogs welcome. Usually everyone's like, oh. And I go, don't you think that's funny? They go, no. I think it's hysterical. This I just put together because they needed a shot because this piece was going up to Canada. But it was supposed to be us celebrating, yay, California being a state or whatever. It's like, really? And so it was first it's been all over now, but first thing I had to do was find those little rubber cockroaches. I needed like 700, and I didn't know where. I even called the country of China. I got offered 6-inch cockroaches that glow in the dark and crawl up a wall. It's like, no. I lived in those, I stayed in those apartments in downtown LA. And finally I found them in Washington State at McPhee's. And then I needed help because that's a lot of flags to be putting in their bags. So the California Indian Basket Weavers Association, the board came over, all these Indian women, old ladies are like putting flags in the bags. It's like, yeah, right on. And they all gave me stuff, and so I had them crawling over all the Indian goods, like our food and our music things and our this things and our that things. And it was called Not to Give the Cockroach a Bad Name. And it was a really wonderful thing because it was so, I don't know, it got your attention. And I made it so that you could see other people's art. You just had to be conscious of it. And it turned into this experiment of this wealth experiment because they're really wealthy people who came in. None of them were brown. Came in with mink stoles and stuff like that. They came in and they were annoyed that they couldn't walk where they wanted to walk. So they'd take the cockroaches and go, let's just relocate them. And I thought, oh, yeah, let's relocate those guys. And the little brown kids would come in, and I'd hear them calling them Pepita and stuff. It's like, okay. Earlier, I had stuck one in the bathroom because all the other artists had put one in my art. Put them all in my art. It was like, all right, so they were in everybody's art. And I put some in the bathroom, just the women's. I didn't go in the dudes. I put some in the bathroom. You didn't see them when you sat down, but when you stand up, you see them. And so this lady, from the very first time I got there, this gallery woman, she hated me, just hated me. And so I hear this scream. You could hear it through the whole building. And then, why do they have to be everywhere? I was like, yeah, that's kind of my point. So she made my point for me. If you squint your eyes, it says Yankee Go Home. It's called Grandpa Organizes Abel Stern's Cows. Because Southern California was mainly this huge ranch, and that's how all us Indians worked in the movies, because we were all ranch hands, and then they put us in the movies. And they created those. But we were all ranch hands, and that's got to don't eat it. And that's the clothing I wish I had, like them red boots. But Yankee Go Home. This is called, this is little footlights for those of you who aren't old enough. They were originally candles. Imagine the fire hazards. Inflicted cultural transvestitism. And I every once in a while I'll hear transvestites. I thought we were here to talk about Indians. It's like, no, this is about having to wear another people's culture. This is me at Gay Pride, and my friend taking a selfie with those guys in the background, telling us how horrible we are. I opened up for Pride there that year. It's the first time they had an indigenous person do that from there. I got to see, what's her name? Shoot. Anyway, she used to dance. Here's two of my, I like this shot. It's Land O'Lakes. She has this production called, the group called Brush Arbor Girls. And her art is just immaculate. It's drag, but it's not, it's not the drag my brother did when he was called Bobby Pin. This is a very different drag, and they did one on murdered and missing women, and it just broke my heart. It was just so beautiful. They do stuff that's funny and whatever, but it usually is very heady, and I just like that photo. I like that. This is me in my studio. Very fancy. There's an outcome. They found some baskets locked away in a university, so I came to photograph them. I didn't know that till I got there. So. If you look way to the far right, you see kind of in the crowd there's a woman with sunglasses, and up there's some more people with sunglasses. That's my friends I was with. This is a women's march in Oakland. And my friend turns to me and says, "Oh, Frank, you can get better pictures from the stage." I said, okay. So there's a ramp. So I walked up that ramp, and I just started taking photos. Next thing I know, I got in a fight with this woman here on the end. She was about to speak, and then she invites me up, and we're both up at the mic. I thought, well, that's an interesting day. But I really like it as a black and white photo. And I don't really get to show my photos much because, they're not all native content. But I love photos. I started shooting when I was about 9. My dad had a, what do you call it? It's a rangefinder. It had a Zeiss lens, a Leica. And I was so into it that the next year for Christmas, they gave me a pink Hawkeye brownie. It's like, pink. And it was from that brownie that I realized that it's not the camera. Yes, lenses are very helpful, but it's your eye. It's not the brush or whatever. But I like this photo. I like this selfie because it looks like we're on the run. We kind of are. We're at the Museum of the American Indian. We're running to go smoke a doober, but Capitol in the building. This is a little test. This is called a tiat, or canoe, our word for it in the LA Basin. To get to the islands, the Chumash call there's the Tumul. So we built a small one so my friend could figure out how. And then I did this the next morning. I threw in the shark. And they laughed about it. The next morning, he's standing over my bed going, "Are you awake?" Until I woke up. And he goes, "Look at Facebook." And then they threw on who's much better at Facebook, throws in my little puppet who does language, and this octopus, and it became really something, I wrote an article about it, an unexpected journey or build your dreams and never mind the sharks. Yeah. This is a knot that only exists for this canoe. It's rather interesting for those who like knots and wood or canoes. There's over 400 holes in our canoe, where it's got to be sewn and tied together. The thing about this photo is that the cord first goes out and it comes back in, and you make your knots and you pull those knots and they go into the holes. And then in the old times we'd cover them with asphaltum and pine pitch mix. Now we use submarine thing because I want to return to shore. So she has no inner frame. Those are there to guide some plywood, but it's really interesting building something that, people's lives depend on, and you're just an artist. It's like, when I get nervous about doing things, like my partner says, cut my hair, it's like curls on this side this way and doesn't on that side. I'm thinking, I don't know how to cut hair, and for a long time it showed. But after a while, I started thinking about, well, I like that, the David, right? Dude, I'll just do a David haircut. There it was. Because I saw it as a medium to be tamed, not hair anymore, which she was happy finding. She didn't recognize she looked like David. So there's 3 extinct Indians. Oh, I forgot to say that. I'm extinct. Yeah. So are they. But here we are. Yeah. My nephew Chayakaway, I named him that. It just means 50 cents. So this is us in that canoe backing in, because you have to back into the shore as protocol to show that you're not a threat. As you land, someone's landing, you see an oncoming canoe, and that's us backing in. I'm going to make the paddles much lighter. I went from wood, which everyone uses, to a carbon fiber, which I didn't know how to work. It's really actually kind of lovely in a poisonous, toxic way. And turns out I like shaving down that foam core, Now I'm going to just use just one layer of carbon fiber, and they're going to be much lighter. Because they're 10 feet long, and you're on your knees. Throw this in because it's just, again, I just like black and white. And I used to shoot a lot of Panics. This is about how the world started. The Mother Earth laid with her feet to the northern star Polaris. It's up there near the red road there, and the octopus's leg, that's Polaris. And then she gave birth, and there's that plant, but don't, thank you. God, I'm glad you're paying attention. You'll die or go blind because the plants are only for the genetic type, or the people they come from. There's one plant that people eat independently. They all go. I was like coming on to it when this lady says, "Get the hell out of here," and so they all run away. My plant doesn't do that; it just kills you. But I just shot that basket, and it was either Rome and liked it and did that. A couple of photos I did. Oh. I told my friend, just push this button. I'm going to go lay down over there. It's tough being an urban Indian because you're afraid of like trees. I better tell this story. Okay, so I get to the hotel in the afternoon, and it's a huge hotel, and there's this giant bed, and it's dark, and all the lights are on, and my friend is there with her mother because there's another little room for her mother. It's like, okay, great. And I say, why is it so dark in here? Why do you have all the lights on? Why don't you open the curtains? So they go, okay, so I open the curtains, and there's one curtain, it's like this big, heavy corduroy, and then there's this other curtain, and it's this, I don't know, rubber kind of thing, real thick, and then there's this other, and there are 4 curtains on this thing, plus a shade. So I open it up, it's like, yay. All right, so we go do our conference. It's a ethno-something conference, and we come back, and we're real tired. It's like, all right, let's go to bed now. So it's this huge bed, so I lay down and I say, good night. My friend lays down, good night, so that it's dark. Now the curtains are all closed. Now, if you've ever changed film in a dark room, I see you have one here, it's as dark as that. Okay? Usually I say a dark room, people go, how dark was it? It's a dark room. Anyway, so it's a dark room, and I'm thinking I'm dreaming that a bird is trapped in the window, and I realize I'm not dreaming, I'm hearing a bird trapped in a window, and I can, spatially I figure it's a bird about this big by the wings, by the way it's hitting, and I feel it's trapped behind all those curtains, but I don't move because I'm thinking, whoa. And so I'm just laying there, and my eyes are open. Of course, it's a dark room, so I'm seeing nothing, but I'm hearing it from that window, and I'm thinking, well, and then all of a sudden I look over because I'm slaps sound like, when your little kids, there's a particular little snap crackle to them. And over in the corner of the room, this huge room, were these flashes, and they were intense, but they were teeny, but they would flash and pop and make that, and then there's flap, 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 and I'm thinking, whoa. And then over here, it's like, oh, okay. And then I'm thinking, yeah, just that, because what else can I think? And then I realized that something is appearing in the far corner, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking this must be the lamp electrocuting, there's going to be a fire next, but no. And I thought that must be some weird smoke alarm, because about this large, but it was more bioluminescent. I don't quite have it there. It was a circle that kept kind of changing shape, but not much, and those little arms would come back and out and in. And they were just doing that, and it's like snap, snap, flap, flap, undulate, flap. And I'm thinking, whoa. And all of a sudden I think, there's someone standing there. But how can I see someone standing there? Because this is a dark room. And that's when I sat up, and I felt the blankets on the other side up also. Nobody's going on now 2 minutes. And we haven't said anything because, again, what can you say? And so I think, you're like a small child. You've rubbed your eyes too hard, and you're seeing things, And so I've been talking myself out of that. I've seen someone when someone does this, just ever so gently, just moves a shoulder. And my stomach kind of lurched because, well, that's something to see in the dark with everything else going on. It's not a thing that happens every day. And, And so that's when I heard her say, I am going to turn on the light. And she ain't talking to me, And I felt the covers move, and she said it again. The lights came on. Everything went slowly. And her mother comes in and goes, what are you kids up to? Like we're kids, And she's this professor at a university. I'm like, all right. So anyway, we tell her, and she says, well, if it happens again, tell me. And so we go, it's happening again later at a point, And she came in just in time to see the undulating whatever. So we met with all the elders yesterday who were all at that conference, and they listened intently, each from different tribes in California, and each agreed that we had been visited by 4 benevolent spirits. This hotel sits on the village of Seacoon in Santa Barbara, and they came to see us. I just like this photo. Look at, don't they make you happy? Longtime friends, yeah? A friend you hardly know. Everyone asks me what I shoot. I shoot anything. If it's lit seductively, I will shoot it. Don't eat it. Took her once back to the Navajo reservation. She'd never been. She's Navajo. Took her. I heard her on the phone. This is when you had to go in a booth. I heard her on the phone going, I'm really here. I'm in Navajo land. And she was so excited. I said, Susan, you're Navajo. It was a homecoming. This is a painter. Her name's America. She's Cherokee. You can tell by the Cherokee writing on the top painting. Oh, I loved it so much. It's twice. I always want to paint hotel art. I tell people that in all sincerity, and it always ends up doing this instead. Those are those baskets. My mentor, we traveled quite a few places in Europe and other. She got a really good picture of the potato henge I made in England once. We went into this little place to have food. There were 3 of us, and my back was to the door, which I really don't like, but okay, I guess I can trust the English for 4 minutes. They never want to let me in their country. They once put me in a room for 4 hours for no absolute reason at all. It's like, well, welcome. So anyway, I think it's because I said I was here to visit Scottish women. And they kept insisting I was there to see English women. Yeah, I think that's what it had to do with. Anyway, so this is another time where in this restaurant eating, and I had, the potatoes, the chips, they're a good size, and I realized that proportionate to the plate, that it looked like Stonehenge, which I have visited before, that everything being all equal. And so I just got into it when a hand shoots out and stop. Apparently the room had filled up, and I embarrassed them. But she got a really nice photo. It was a lovely potato henge. I just like this. I think it's 2 men doing a men's dance, but it's actually 2 men getting poison ivy. Just pomo dances. My first photography teacher told us that tricks the eye. You can make something with no color and still, entice the eye. I like this. Even if I don't know what it is, there's something more Indians. Hi. Oh, there's a t-shirt I did. I try to teach myself lino cuts. So that's one. Some old dude who was a code talker and saved everybody from being German. First baskets in like probably 100 years for someone in their tribe, Chumash. Oh, it's a picture I took in my homeland after a fire. I reduced my shadow, but otherwise everything's accurate. I walked through canyons I always walked through that were green, and then it came to this. Here's one I took in New York when the train was stuck on 4th Street. I like that there was a tree growing right out of the side there. You can't, nature has its way. Don't eat it. Isn't she luscious though? Don't you wanna? No. I worked on this plate for like 3 months, with those little goggles so I could see up close, and I made those teensy little lines, so teeny, like a 30-second, the whole top, the whole, the bottom, the larger. I worked on that, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because that's when he made us come to class. And the night, it was a Sunday night, and I was going to pull a proof. That's what this is actually. I called it otherwise. I just pulled a proof, and I was so happy. And he had left the room, the teacher, for a moment. And then I come back to pull another, and somebody had put a broken roller where my roller was and taken my roller. And so I just picked it up, and I went like this, and the roller fell apart, and it put a good 1.5 inches, and it'd been awkward in it, and this or that. There's no way I could burnish that out without, so I just cleaned up, and everyone looked at me like, oh, and I was leaving, and, he knew that I never left early, and I said, I'll see you, and he goes, oh, okay, and then as I'm walking out the door, and I heard him go, what happened, and they told him, and he goes, oh, for like 2 weeks, he treated me like he brought me tea and stuff, and it was like,
Was that the only proof you got?
yeah, so I threw it in the computer and said, all right, this was my intent. Yeah. It's the dance of the lost Pleiades. This happened because I was visited by a whirlwind, and the little people, I heard them talking as we were singing a song, but I can't tell you that story about how a whirlwind never travels alone. The people like to play in them, but you never know where they've been and who they've met. And if those things and people are good for you, so we avoid them. I gave once a drawing like this I was drawing. This is actually a raven, and I didn't put a tail because I thought, well, tails were a given. So I gave one to my friend's mom that you saw with the baskets there, real old lady, and she looks at me and she goes, how did you know I was born with a tail? I don't know what that caused her to say that, but I didn't know was born with a tail. I didn't know that. I didn't know that I won. Where are you? We were talking today about frames. Yeah, this is my PVC frame because it's how America has affected our peeps. How many minutes do I have?
Well, it's a little after 8.
Okay, so keep going.
Time for Q&A.
All right. So how about if I do this? Oh, I wish I could tell you. Don't need. Oh, look at that. Oh, the stories. Oh, no. Oh, this is about tattooing. Oh, no. It's about, the end. Yeah, I told my friends because our hotel room, this is in Santa Fe. This is the place they charged me $16 for lip balm, whatever. Anyway, I was at that conference, and my room was at the end, so Richard and I was just sitting there while I smoked pot, and then people would go up and take their picture next to it. It's huge, and I said, I want my picture on it. So I sent my friend out with my camera, and she like got all settled because it's wide out in the open, people can see us. And then Richard and I walked around to the other side, and then he does this. Well, there are antlers on the other side, and one of them nearly took my eye out, but I managed to get up there safely, and yeehaw. This is in place. You might have seen the end of the trail, the one with the Indians like this, like, oh shit. I got tired of that, So, because we're not in that place anymore.
Well,
kind of. It was such huge flames. But we had practiced at home. We burned up paper mache to see what would be left, and we took the appropriate materials and left all, But it was massive. And plenty of racist people did come up and feel like, even small children could come up and tell us racist things. They felt compelled. I said, get closer to the fire. Look at, I could have taken more time for the spooky stories. Question? None. Any question about a particular side? We went by too fast.
I have a question.
All right.
Why is the text backwards?
I'm autistic, dyslexic, misophonia, and all those other things.
And when you write it, it's backwards.
Yeah. I read forwards, but not very well because, I read a lot, but the top line dips into the lower line and then the words mesh in the middle. So it makes it difficult. But, yeah. So I decided, it really almost got me kicked out of the Air Force because they found something I had written. It was backwards and I was going to be a graphic specialist. And I thought, So they sent me to the psychiatrist.
You were in the Air Force.
Yeah. Well, I intended only to be in the Guard. Then once in, we told I could be sent to Korea. It's like, really? I thought I was going to get El Segundo, California. Yeah, I joined because for several reasons. One, I'm a lesbian. We like uniforms. I'm a person of service, and I have badmouthed the service, the military, as in the military-industrial complex, killers. I totally understand all that, but I badmouthed it on so many levels that I felt that I was unfair in my critique. And so I went, and I thought, I have to be more than fair. And I had an interesting job because when you go in as a graphic specialist, then you make all the charts and films and things that the very, very, very top people on the planet see. So you have to know then all this very, very top planety stuff. So that was kind of fascinating. Now they have an app for it, but one of my jobs was if Russia drops a bomb in El Segundo and the wind's blowing towards, Hermosa Beach, how long will it take till 3 million people are dead? Yeah, that was one of my cheery jobs. Mostly I was gawked at because I was the lowest ranked person ever to work on that base. It's called the Hollywood base because it's nothing but generals. Like the one that yelled at me at basic training. He only yelled at me, all right, I'll tell you this since no one has a question, all right? All right, so it's time to go into class. So you have to sit at attention site class. So this guy comes into class and is how we don't disrespect anybody, we don't tell jokes about people, and we don't tell jokes about women. Well, so the next class starts, and this is about how we, again, accept everybody. Okay, but he comes walking in, and he starts differently. He says, okay, he says, who called Sergeant Rodriguez a male chauvinist pig? So I raised my hand. I said, sir, I did not say pig. And so, all right. So then he's going to show us a film. This is a film about different people. And so you can get used to working with different people. You will hear and see a homosexual. He said that, and I went, so when the film was over, I raised my hand. I said, why did you set us up? And he says, what? And I said, well, what if we didn't know? And if you had not told us, would we have known? And he says, well, I don't know. And then he goes on, because he's trying to get rid of me now. And he says, well, you can't know. You must know by law. You are not allowed to know any known homosexuals, because, I lied on the form. And I said, well, sir, and he was like, okay. I raised my hand. He says, yes. I said, my brother is homosexual. Can I not see him? And he says, no, you can see your brother. I said, where does it say that in the rules? And he says, it doesn't. I said, well, then how do you know I can do it? And so they sent me up the ranks to like Sergeant Master Fury, wow, kind of stuff. Big scar here, like I'd been in a saber duel or something. And they sent me up the ranks. Nobody can answer my question, right? Finally, they send me and it says General something. So I knock on the door and I hear like a cartoon thing, what is that? Come on. And I turn the knob, go in, and there's a dude with, the ubiquitous cigar and his stars all over himself. And I walk up and I, do the thing. And he says, what do you want? And I said, well, I have a question that nobody seems to answer. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, the question I have, nobody seems to answer. And I just keep sent from this person to that person to this person. And I feel that the next door that I go to, it's going to be, I'm going to open it and there's going to sit Woody Allen. And he could not throw me out of there. how genius you have to be thought of well in the service. We're in San Antonio, it's really hot, so air conditioning. Well, the air conditioning stops. Well, we're going to suffocate. So I looked at the person guarding the door, and she looks at me terrorized. So everyone's looking, and so I just walked over and I opened the window. And everyone's going, no one told us we could. It's like, so, yeah. Yeah.
So, you said that you don't usually just talk about your art, you use your art to explain.
Mm-hmm. Which I almost did here. Yeah.
So do you make your art just for the purpose of explaining, or is it something that you will make art?
Well, photography is different, but everything else is so that my people know they're not extinct. It's a responsibility. Because it hurts them that they know nothing. They feel stupid. They're not stupid. They've just been stepped on for several hundred years. So it's a responsibility. And it was interesting to me once anyway, and then Elder yelled at me, see what you've done, and I didn't know what she meant. But she says, you brought all these people together, and it's not a funeral. All the factions were there because no one's going to be left out, right? And so they'd go around the room and they'd glare at each other, but then they'd meet at a piece of art. It was my show, and I had a bunch of different things, stonework and all kinds of paintings and different things, pyro, engraving. And so when they'd meet at something, they would first refuse to leave, because, no, I got here first kind of thing. And then they'd start talking about it. Because it was them, whether they're how separate, whatever, it was them. So I'm just glad they could see that. And people say, well, why don't you focus, make one type of art? Well, I'm not interested in that. That seems to me a little boring and slow. A lot of people can do it, and not me. I mean, I can do many, many slow and tedious things, like, edit things or do whatever, but several things is how my mind is best filled. Because as you work on one thing, the problem is solved on another. Oh, sure. Hey. Oh, 1, 2. Oh, yes. Very important to me. For our tribe, I helped build the first canoe in 250 years. Since then, we built her 8 years ago now, Itar, which means coyote. We built the second one. We built that first one in 1990 something, 1 or 2. So it's been a while, and we're getting close to 300 years here on this. And I'm building a second one, teeny one, and a third one. I got a big grant, and I'm building a fourth. And I'll use all the help I can get. It's an interesting process, and what has solidified the building of the canoe was a friend of mine. He's both Lakota and native from the West Coast, Salish, I think. He and some other men, to give their kids off of drugs and things, started the tribal canoe journeys. And it's a very strict thing. It's a moving village, and it's a lot of work. And your whole life is dictated by the winds and the tides. And you're exhausted halfway through because you put up a tent and your whole camp, and it's taken you an hour and a half to put it up, and how long to take it down, and you're driving 10 minutes away to do it again, because the canoes take a longer journey. So but what it teaches you is how wonderful that all is, and it teaches you how to live in community. And so we travel with the Pacific Northwest canoes. We travel with Uncle Philip's family and Stonecarver Camp. And it's a lot of, I get to hear Uncle Philip talking. He's maybe the most intelligent man I've ever met, which is saying something, because I think I've met some people. And he used to work for the government, which ruined his life. It was the military, and it was far more destructive to him. But he still has some knowledge. And so it binds people in ways that when you know that it's going to end in the week and a half, whatever, you just have to, you just know you have to come back. Because not only are you taking this canoe that you've made, that barely anyone knows how to make, and there are no real instructions, and you're putting people's lives into it. They got followed by orcas. They go, oh, how spiritual, orcas. It's like, no, they're hungry. They were praying, all right. They were praying you'd fly out of your canoe. And you just have to get back to that. There's just something about that. It's the most correct way to live. Being with a group of people and being responsible. Sometimes you don't want to be around them, during that time, and other times you can't think how you lived without them. So the canoe building is part of the journey, and it's pretty exciting. Right now we're getting ready to plane some wood, and then we have to steam it for about 2 hours. My people originally used smaller planks. I thought I had one in here because we harvested wood that came down the Humboldt Current, but now we can use longer planks. And about 2 hours, it comes out very noodly, and within 8 minutes, it freezes up. So not only do we apply it, but we also have to twist it down slightly in order to put it on. It's a very interesting canoe. I forgot to look at the chumash and how they fix the bottom hull. I put a small little rail, a keel in there for direction. And it barely looks different the front from the back. We just have it raked out slightly differently, and that's from experience now of just the waves breaking over and what they do. And I added a component, I call them wings, but the Maori, is a friend of mine, is Wikuki. He makes canoes for the royalty of Aotearoa. And he was walking by as I said out loud to myself, I wonder if I should put this on. And I was holding a board there, and he's yelling, of course you need to put it on, but he really knows about the ocean, so okay. So I put it on, but what happens is if I don't put it on, it breaks your momentum. You go through waves, breaks your momentum. This lifts you slightly and continues your momentum. And it's pretty cool because I want to make a bunch of fishing implements out of the original woods, like harpoons. I don't want to chuck it at anything, but, I'm an urban Indian. So there's a whole lot involved in language and song, because we have 5 songs for the canoe, and we haven't had but one song in 200 years. So the canoes brought a lot. Him and then, yeah.
You shared sort of a multiplicity of languages and approaches with us. And one of the things you said really early on was that there's this difference between the spirit and the ancestor.
A spirit and a ghost.
Oh, and ghost.
Mm-hmm.
I was, whether I heard it correctly or not, I'm really interested in how the languages might be received. I think to you is my question, because I also was hearing that you heard first before the sonic. Anything you might want to share about those 2 languages?
The languages of those?
Yeah.
You mean like the native language or the language as in the flavor of?
Flavor.
Oh.
Or whatever
You're talking about the magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's easy. Yeah. Every time I learn something scientific, I throw out my magic, and then I realize science is puny. Don't throw it out, even though there's no structure for me. That magic, I traveled the world with a Canadian woman for about 12 years before I was born. And we have exactly the same lives, except that hers was the easy, sweet side of the same, doing the same things, and mine was pretty tumultuous. But we traveled, I didn't remember this until I was doing language in Canada. And she reminded me, and she still can speak, and she's 12 years younger than me. I'm 69. But she can still speak the language of babies. She still remembers that. So she remembered all this magic, and she finally got it through my thick skull and I then all of a sudden I started remembering things that I thought were dreams, but she was remembering the same things. And finally I caught up. And so that's a lot of magic. But in utero, I did not hear, yes, I probably heard Spanish and English and German being spoken and some other languages, but very early on, just seeing the people, they presented themselves, and I come from a family on both sides. My Rarámuri side, further way down south in the Sierra Madres, Mexico, from medicine people. So I've got all this stuff which I don't have any way to deal with it other than deal with it as it happens. Because I've had no instruction. There's been nobody to guide any of that. So a great deal of magic keeps entering my life all the time. Very, very interesting things. And like once when I ate way too many mushrooms, which was an accident because it was the first time that people had done that. and I was in the desert, and I ran up this hill to tear down this cross that was in the desert because I find them offensive. Put it up in your own backyard. And the ravens went with me, which is my amakur. I have tattoos up my leg that the Hawaiians put of the raven's beaks, and that's my family member. And so they traveled with me the whole time, And it wasn't me just like going, ooh, hallucination. Not at all. Because part of the problem is I come from a peoples who ate 11 different types of cactuses, so they're not really hallucinations. They are observations, observation points. The time that I ate the plant I keep telling you not to, I called up all my friends, had little conversations, not saying goodbye, but saying goodbye, just in case, because there's possibility you die. It's recycle. It's just part of it. And I had no Indian doctor to guide. So first thing that happened is it drove me out into nature, which that's really odd for me because I tell people I like nature through a window. And I realized I could hear the pine needles breathing. First, this wall of water dropped, which is very interesting. When I'm on the California Rock Art Foundation board, and I was talking to my friend, and he was with the Havasupai way over, and he said that they explained the same thing as I did. This wall of water that drops, and like it's kind of like vampire, how everything's luscious, and this world is not very pretty at all. Yeah. But you risk dying. Yeah. But all that magic, I don't know if I've answered your question at all, but because magic is pretty intricate, but yeah. And that's the only way I think I've been able to do things, through magic, because my ancestors have visited me and they've actually come through the sky and with their pointed fingers yelling at me. But I ran away from that for a long time because I thought, well, I'm a kid from the streets. What do I know? But then here I am. I hope I answered something. Yeah. Oh, her then.
I was just curious.
Or
Language revitalization is something
yeah.
that you carry inside of you, and tattoo revitalization is something that's on the outside of you.
Huh.
Talk about the relationship between that inside and outside.
It's a reflection of my inside, so I don't know that I separate it. And it's really just, it's the inside revealed. Yeah, this was tapped. It was all tapped. We've been traveling with Coyote. He was tapping my friend there. It's the Hawaiian thing with the stick with the cone, and then you take another stick and they go, let's beat you, El Franco. Okay. And when I was done, he posted on Facebook my eye, and it says, the second only known, successful eye tattoo. And I thought, he didn't say that before. Because, it goes all the way over to here. And at the very first whack, I thought, oh, no, this ain't going to work. And then two young women who had visited me the day before and brought me very special leis and taught me how to stand like straight girls, where they do this. And so they were there to support me. They're young activists wearing their resist pants and rise sweats, And I thought, no, you can't cry, you can't stop, So it went on. But it's called makapo. It literally, he told me it means blind, but what it means is I can see what others can't, or I can see. And so that's a very inside thing. And it's interesting because when I got it, even though my eye was about this big and still bleeding all over the place, I was wandering around the streets of Hawaii. Hawaiians would come up and we would share breath, and they would hold me and they would just say respect, because they recognized, even though it's only the second successful, but they understood. And then I hit the mainland and everybody was like, holy what happened to you, So, but it was very different. But yeah, because being able to, it's important to see who we are and look who we are. Oh, uh-huh.
So my question is about your coyote.
Yeah.
So I'm Apache from Arizona.
Oh no, get out of here.
And,
Sorry.
So we tell coyote stories and talk about coyote only in the winter.
Right.
So when you do your coyote drawings, do you only do it in the winter time, or do you do it whenever?
I do it whenever Coyote lets me. And I understand this, like I try to avoid star stories not because we know this, but I know because, sorry, but one of my best friends is Danae, so, yeah. So, anyway, so I know this, and I think that we might, why would we be so different? I don't think we would be. But Coyote, actually, because I don't have any instruction or parameters, I'm never sure. And I have learned that Coyote comes and shows up when Coyote hasn't shown up in a while. I keep trying to draw Coyote. The last time I tried to draw Coyote, it looked like a cartoon strip because I never know what I'm going to draw because I put on my magic glasses. And then the drawing happens. And so there's this strip, and I'm thinking, oh, and then Coyote shows up in the first one, and Coyote does this. And it's like, what is that? And then the second frame, Coyote's, okay. The third frame, Coyote's going, what? Fourth frame? Fifth? And so evidently, Coyote did not want me to draw it, no matter winter, summer, whatever. So I have no control over them, which is kind of weird. I'm okay. But, yeah. Things show up but I totally understand what you're saying, and I'm really conscious of it, and I always try to be respectful of it in some way.
No,
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
Oh yeah, no, it's important.
From different tribes,
Exactly.
because I know, like, in the winter we can just, like, talk about them and,
Yeah.
tell the stories, sing the songs and stuff, and then when summer or spring starts coming around, we stop. Because we don't want them coming to our village.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I made a piece of art once because I was going to go do language with Midawong down in Coonanuda. You ever saw the movie Australia? There's lots of clips of Coonanuda in there, which is really interesting. I'm so artistic, but yet they adopted me and put crocodile shit water on my head as a sign of respect. Thank you. Anyway, God, what was I telling you? Oh, so I thought when I went down there, I'd try and make something mutual, so I put the crocodiles, which I'm deathly afraid of, because they can leap out of the water past the tips of their tails. And then I put acorns. So I put an acorn for us, food. So I put two food source things, two cultural things in a lino cut, and none of them would take it because they didn't want to invite the crocodile into their house. So, it's like, oh, I didn't think of that. I give them to my other friends who don't live near crocodiles.
Maybe one last question?
Sure.
On the continuation with talking about language and also Coyote and Trickster sort of identities. Can you talk about you're talking so funny? Can you talk about misdirection at all? I feel like misdirection is this major feature of comedy, and as sort of a trick for the ultimate truth or something like that. And I feel like that is the role of the trickster, whether it's in comedy or it is. I feel like the artist in general is a trickster, kind of misdirection for an ultimate wisdom or something like that, or spinning you around for your own good. Can you speak to that? Sure. We're talking about trickster we're in a class right now too, so it seems especially relevant.
And that was the question I was going to ask about the role of humor and addressing.
Humor, yeah.
Well, addressing my own humor, I'm just artistic, and this is my socially acceptable. The way I talk just happens. People just go, "Oh, okay, you're funny." I go, "What was so funny about that?" I go home. I ask my partner of 40 years every time I do something. I go, "Why did they laugh?"
I don't buy it.
Yeah. Oh no, it's quite true. It's quite true. Because I never remember what I'm going to say. She's the one who says, "Well, you're extemporaneous, and you just this is just who you are." She says, "You're just fast and witty," and I go, "Okay," which was neither fast nor witty. So, but the misdirection thing I totally get, and I can't speak to it as much as I know it, because when I say that Coyote has control over what Coyote does, people go, "Wow, I love your double entendres," and I said, "Wow, you should see my triples," because I didn't know what a double entendre was, and I didn't know I was doing them, And so people keep informing me about my art. It's very interesting, It's like, wow, I had no idea, my partner again says it's because I read a great deal, or used to read, even though it's a struggle. Yeah, but I have no idea.
And but the backwards text, too,
Uh-huh.
you know, I
Yeah.
feel like that is doing something similar.
Yeah, well, there's a guy that I really don't like, but he makes good art. His name's Edgar Heapaburs. I don't like him because in an audience full of artists, he says, there are no good Native women artists. Like, anyway, but he does good stuff, but he writes backwards in order to take people back into time. I write backwards because it's the way it comes out of my head, and I refuse to be boxed into doing something else. If you don't want to read it, don't. You know, and it's I don't read backwards. I used to write upside down and backwards, which is what caught their eye when I almost got kicked out of the Air Force. It was a laundry thing. They surprised me. Somebody ran up with a surprise inspection. Somebody ran up with a dirty sheet and said, "Where do I put it?" I said, "Put it in my thing." And then they checked my thing, and then they looked closer at me, and I was in hot water. But it was because I wrote upside down and backwards. But yeah, no, the trickster is also the raven is a trickster, and but those people are the ones that well, they hold so much of every culture that they're a part of. There are rules without parents and family being authoritative. You know, I've heard Indian families say, it might sound spooky to non-natives, but I've heard them say someone is watching you. And they don't mean one of us. They mean, you know, maybe at this time of year it's this person, or maybe it's this. You know, the relationship with the land and place. You learn to be respectful of it. And it's something that hasn't washed out of us through all the years, generations. And so somehow, for me, I can't really explain it, Coyote, because I didn't know Coyote. Coyote just showed up one day. Just swear to God, just showed up one day. Started doing stuff. It's like, I have no idea. Like, I have this little book called Acorn Soup, and it's made up of drawings. Like, one time somebody told me a story about, when we hunt deer, we would, like, eat only deer food for a week, and we'd wear a deer skin, and we'd walk with a bow and arrow bent over so that we'd fool the deer. I thought, you ain't fooling no deer. You know, because the guy come from L.A., and you can't be fooled that easily. And so I started, and where do you get this stuff, you know? And so I did a drawing of Deer Decoys Are Us, because I had no idea, you know. So I don't really know anything, to tell you the darn truth. But you know, people bring up things. Actually, I spend a lot of time in museums reading field notes and stuff. But yeah, no, I understand that Coyote's doing this. I just don't understand how I am doing this with Coyote, because I don't feel that I am doing this. Like I say, I put on my magic glasses and things happen. I just, like when I played ball, and I knew because my glove would tingle, not my hand, but my glove would tingle like, the next ball is yours, you know? And it's like, yeah. The next thing I'd know, I wouldn't see anything, and then I'd hear the crack of the bat, and then nothing. And next thing you know, I'm running at the base runner, which, you know, center outfielders really don't do. But I'd be running at the runner going, run, you know, and I'd be 2 feet from them threatening to throw the ball at their face. So, but I would like blank out, just, I don't know where I went, how I caught. They used to call me Circus when I played ball. I have no idea what I did. Evidently it was all right. I have like little trophies and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Yeah, all right.